Good afternoon, and welcome to WSU Tri-Cities. I'm Chancellor Sandra Haynes, and I, of course, then am Chancellor of this campus, and I'm glad that you are able to join us today, for some of you, twice. So, really glad that you've come back. And we're honored to welcome the Governor of the great state of Washington, Jay Inslee. Before we start, let me briefly introduce the speakers we have lined up for this event. Kirk Schultz, President of the WSU system. I was just trying to make us the system office, sorry. Wishful thinking. Anyway, Carl Dye, President and CEO of TRIDEC. Matt Benke, Washington State Senator-elect. Malin Young, Associate Lab Director, Earth and Biological Sciences Director at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. Earlier this fall, I had the distinct privilege of traveling with the governor's delegation to Finland, Sweden, and Norway. On that trip, we learned of the many innovative ways these Nordic nations are decarbonizing their countries, from using and recycling nuclear fuel to implementation of the electrification of transportation, including boats and ferries. We learned more about the power of innovation clusters like those we have right here in Washington State. And we are pleased to have one of those clusters in our own backyard at the Port of Benton, Washington Vertical. We also examined the education system in Finland, which is rated the #1 school system in the world, and got a peek at the prison system in Norway, where the recidivism rate is less than 20%. Due in no small part to the provision of education during incarceration. Good? Okay. All of these topics are clearly a focus for the governor, and I am pleased to work and live in such a forward-looking state. I have to say, it was great to spend time with the governor's team on this adventure and to learn how we might better use the Mid-Columbia region to meet the goals that he has set forward for our state. To that end, we are pleased to have the governor back on campus and to hear about some of his plans for the 2023 legislative session. Please join me in welcoming the 23rd Governor of the State of Washington, Jay Inslee.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for allowing us to join you. We haven't quite created a way to end the fog at the Tri-Cities Airport yet, so thank you for joining us. Well, before I make my comments, I have a confession to make. Confession is good for the soul. I'm a University of Washington Husky, but I'm a University of Washington Husky who loves Washington State University for two reasons. One that is obvious and one that needs to become more obvious. The obvious reason is the opportunities for life-changing education that WSU is providing across the state of Washington. Let me tell you about a conversation I had yesterday that is replicated hundreds of times as governor. I went in to get my bike fixed, and it's been some time to get my bike fixed because of supply chain problems. And I met a young man who's worked there for some period of time. I asked him how he's doing. He says, I'm doing great. I just finished my last tests at the WSU outreach program now in the Olympic Community College campus over in Kitsap County. Here's a young guy. He's been working in a bike shop for as long as I've known him, for at least 10 years. Now getting his mechanical engineering degree real close to where he lives in Kitsap County because of the outreach of Washington State University. The opportunities for life-changing events that are going on across our state, because this is a university who wants to go where people are, is really outstanding. Can we just give them a round of applause for the leadership at Washington State University and what they're doing in this regard? Now, people understand this. This is an obvious reason for loving WSU. But the non-obvious one, the one that is not as recognized as it should, is that the great research that's being done in multiple platforms and multiple endeavors at Washington State University. And that's why I'm so excited today to announce that we will be seeking the legislative support to institute the WSU Institute for Northwest Energy Futures this year in the Washington State Legislature. It is time for the world to look for Washington State University in the Tri-Cities community and the innovation capability of the state of Washington to develop the clean energy sources that the world needs. And the world has to invent new fossil-free methods of energy, and it's going to look right here at the WSU Institute for Northwest Energy Futures. This is a good result. We intend the legislature to support it, and now you can applaud for the future of the world, starting right here at WSU. I'd like to tell you why I believe WSU and Tri-Cities, and by extension the state of Washington, is the perfect place for this next horizon of clean energy research. It's because we understand in the state of Washington and WSU and in the Tri-Cities a fundamental precept of energy, and that is the number one source of renewable energy, the number one source of energy in the world today and in the upcoming decades is not below our feet. It's not buried in the ground as fossil fuels. It is a resource above our shoulders, in our brains, in our kids' brains, in our grandchildren's brains. That is the ultimate source of renewable energy. It is the capability of innovation because of our intellectual capability of the human race when it's put to work in a research institute. And we understand this fundamentally in the state of Washington. It's why we've led the world in so many different new technologies in aerospace and in computing and software and biotechnology, and now in clean energy research. So this is something we get in the state of Washington. And it is perfect for the Tri-Cities because the Tri-Cities is the center of intellectual capability technologically, maybe in the United States as far as per capita engineers. We need to put that engineering talent to work in the next several horizons of clean energy technology. And WSU has stepped up to the plate to be a home for this institute. So personally, I could not be more excited about anything that's going on in the state of Washington. And the sky is the limit for research. The capability of doing what we can to grow whole new industries starting this institute is tremendous. You know, right up the road, 2 new battery technology companies are starting up, now starting manufacturing, Group 14 and Sila. They have developed a new way to have a silicon anode battery to potentially extend battery capacity by 15 or 20%. New systems to help them in their new horizons could take place right here. Over in the Soto region, we're starting a company, First Mode, that is making the largest fuel cell motor in the world. It's actually powering the largest truck in the world right now. In Bellingham, we've doubled the capacity to make solar photovoltaics. This institute has the capability to help any and all of those industries blossom by having 8 to 10 new professors to start with. This is a good start. We're going to start relatively small, but has great capacity for growth. And what I love about how we have structured this institute, it's not directed to 1 or 2. It is going to allow this institute to pick from a variety of technologies to do the research that's necessary to advance these technologies. And it's everything from biofuels. There's already been some great biofuels work being done at WSU, to small modular reactors, to new battery anodes, to new systems of transmission so we can have high capacity transmission, to new systems of energy storage from batteries on up, to green hydrogen, which we intend to be a green hydrogen hub. It's pretty exciting that when I was in Egypt at the the COP Center, I met the South Korean ambassador to the United States. And we signed an MOU to start a green hydrogen trans-Pacific corridor where we can swap green hydrogen across the Pacific Ocean. Won't it be a great day when we develop new ways of producing green hydrogen right here in the Tri-Cities at WSU? That's the kind of future that we envision for this institute. And I'm going to look forward to the legislature supporting this. We're going to make about a $10 million appropriation request to start this institute. We have a great leader here, Senator Joe Wynn, who's a committee leader here today, who has already almost written a check already, right, Joe? That's almost done. But I am cautiously optimistic about legislative support for this idea because it is so in keeping with the basic DNA of the state of Washington of recognizing the power of R&D. Now, I should also say why I'm optimistic about this is that we in our state have done so much already on the clean energy field. We have the best clean cap and invest system in the United States to generate billions of dollars to use for clean energy and at the same time people to work and at the same time have environmental justice. You know, we have the most equitable system in the United States where we committed 35% of the proceeds to disproportionately affected communities and 10% to tribal communities. I'm proud of our system because it brings the most environmental justice at the same time it grows jobs across the state of Washington. We now started our low carbon fuels program, which is going to bring consumers less carbon intensive fuel sources, less polluting sources. I'm very proud that last few weeks, our Building Code Council adopted the best building code standards in the United States. Isn't it cool that the Washington state is the first state in the United States to make sure that every building, commercial and residential, that's being built starting next year will have access to a heat pump so you don't have to depend on fossil fuels. This is the first time this has been done in the state of Washington. So we have taken all of these measures on a policy standpoint to build and implement existing technologies. But we need new technological advances. We know we need more. We know that there are more things out there yet to be discovered, and here's a place to do it. By the way, pretty exciting today. They just announced today that tomorrow the Department of Energy will announce Lawrence Livermore Research Institute has created the first net energy generating fusion system in world history. That's pretty exciting too. So that's the kind of thing that we believe can continue to happen here. I want to mention a couple other things, though, we will also be doing this year. While we have these new whiz-bang technologies, why we have these whole new industries, including manufacturing industries, we have to be able to site them. We have to have a place to build them. So we will be proposing new ways to site, to engage communities on how to site these facilities. This is absolutely fundamental to get this job done. So I'm excited to be here. I think the sky's the limit at WSU and Tri-Cities. Let's go build a future right here in the Northwest. Congratulations, everybody. Oh, yes, I was going to introduce the next speaker. Now I'd like to introduce a fellow who's really shown leadership that's important to the whole state of Washington, President Schultz, who's doing a great job.
I would say good morning. That's what it says on my notes, but it should be good afternoon now. And it is great to see so many friends and colleagues here in the Tri-Cities that came out today. I have an opportunity to travel around the country a lot and work with other presidents at other major public and private universities. And I can tell you, I'm always the envy of other presidents around the country because we have a great supportive governor of higher education and research and technology in Governor Jay Inslee. And then we have a legislature that also values the fact that we are a technological state and that research investment in public higher education is needed to move us forward. People who are just in the state of Washington take this for granted. Go live in some other states in the Midwest, the Deep South, the East Coast, and you'll find that that's not the case. And I think that's an opportunity we have to continue to be national and international leaders in this particular space. Well, you know, what do you do when you get lemons? Sometimes you make lemonade. So one of the things that we did, and we as a leadership team at WSU during the pandemic, when we were sort of shut down, said, what does the future of the university look like? And what came out of that is something we call One WSU. And that is really us formalizing, being a system, and recognizing that we had 6 different campuses, a global campus and 5 physical locations, and each of these campuses needed to be able to focus on what was important for their communities. And that means that sometimes in Pullman, we may not know exactly what we need to be doing in the Tri-Cities or Vancouver, Everett, Spokane, or a global campus. And so now we are 2 years later, and Chancellor Sandra Haynes has worked with her team to put together this proposal about energy being a key focal point for the WSU Tri-Cities campus. It's made a lot of sense for a lot of time. We have many colleagues in the room that worked to make sure that this campus had that kind of a focus, but it took Sandra pulling it all together, and I really do appreciate that. You know, one of the things as a land-grant university, as Washington's land-grant university, I want us to be tackling the tough problems. We don't want to work on the margins. We want to take those really difficult, challenging things and be able to work and bring expertise of students, faculty, staff, communities, industry, elected officials all together on solving some of these problems. When you talk about faculty and the research they do, almost no faculty member will say, I do research so I can work around the margins. People are trying to do big things, and we want to make sure that we continue to be part of that. Now, the energy space is a really interesting one, and I have a spouse that does a lot of work in this area, and we have so many different things that are out there. New technologies, legacy technologies, policy issues that all need to be blended together. And when we look at the future of the state of Washington, we need a group, we need a resource where people can go to with technical expertise, policy expertise, and that can make a difference in helping our state continue to move forward and do great things. A lot of it is how are we going to put all this together? And it's easy. You talk to different groups, and they say, oh, I've got an answer. But you need a unifying organization that is going to take that and say, how do we weave all this together to have the future, a green energy future for our state? Things like legacy technologies, hydropower, wind, solar power, latest developments in nuclear power right here in the Tri-Cities, hydrogen and a hydrogen economy, and policy issues, and you try and weave all that stuff together, we're going to need all of that. The Institute for Northwest Energy Futures will serve, not can serve, will serve as a research powerhouse here in the Tri-Cities to really start addressing some of these issues. Some of the questions: what's a true cradle-to-grave, cradle-to-recycle, cradle life cycle costs of a lot of these technologies? We like to look at a certain aspect of it, but you need a group that's going to look at the total impact on the environment and our communities to do that. How can we use big data to better predict energy demands and understand consumption patterns? What are the social consequences on our lives of various energy choices? We often worry about the technology, but sociologists and many others at WSU are going to play a major role in making sure that we understand the impacts of the decisions that we're making on the technology side and how that impacts our well-being and equity in the state of Washington. So finally, I think WSU Tri-Cities is the penultimate place to put this institute. It brings together the system and all the things across the system, brings together a community of many scientists and leaders and engineers and elected officials together in one place. And I look forward to looking a decade down the road, and we say, well, look at where we are as a state of Washington in the energy space. And what it was is this became the catalyst to continue to do that next set of things. So, Governor Inslee, thank you so much for your support. Senator-elect Benke, we look forward to your support. We look forward to the legislature. I think Jay has teed this up now, and it's a team effort now to get it over the finish line and go out and bring some wonderful talent from around the world to the Tri-Cities to work on our energy future in the state of Washington. So thank you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say at least one go Cougs before I step down. So with that, the person who really is responsible for pulling all this together and making this future around the Institute what we think it's going to be, Chancellor Sandra Haynes. Sandra.
Thank you so much, President Schultz. WSU is so pleased to have this recognition of the Institute for Northwest Energy Futures. and this is an institute, as you have heard, that will help inform the evolution of a new energy economy. This very community represents the ideal geographical nexus for creating that system. Not only is this campus part of the WSU system, and so we will bring all of the faculty expertise from across the system to bear on solving these problems. And this system produces extensive research on decarbonizing energy, both power and fuel, which I think is very important. WSU is located in the Mid-Columbia region, an area that is rich in clean energy resources such as hydro, nuclear, wind, solar, and we have ample biomass that can be converted into alternative fuel sources. In the Mid-Columbia region, we are proximate to many innovative entrepreneurs, including the one who helped me envision this institute, Bob Ferguson, and whose initial gift helped us to start the Institute for Northwest Energy Futures. There are many other innovative companies in this area that are focused on energy, including our utilities, and of course, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. WSU and PNNL have a long collaborative history of synergistic partnerships that bring together our considerable scientific expertise. Together, we already have in place 3 joint institutes working to address global energy challenges: the Bioproducts Institute, the Nuclear Science and Technology Institute, and the Advanced Grid Institute, as well as the Bioproducts Sciences and Engineering Laboratory that is located right here on the WSU Tri-Cities campus. These collaborations represent considerable and long-standing investment and partnership in developing the solutions to some of the largest challenges to achieving energy sustainability. Our partnership will allow the Institute for Northwest Energy Futures to work with the Pacific Northwest Laboratory's extensive list of experts to integrate new and existing insights in engineering, environmental studies, economics, and society to produce objective research and analysis that our public and private decision makers need to bridge science and policy. The Center of Gravity in Clean Energy Research we aim to build here in the Tri-Cities, combined with the rich scientific capacity already in place, will be highly attractive to top-flight scientists and faculty ready to advance public and private funding opportunities. That's big bang for the buck that drives our economy and improves the lives of Washingtonians and beyond. All of these assets collectively provide a unique opportunity for partnerships on research and development and scalability testing, and also systems integration, as President Schultz alluded to, while at the same time having a ready workforce in our backyard. WSU Tri-Cities already educates this region's new workforce with curricular offerings and research that prepare our highly diverse graduates to provide solutions for some of the biggest and toughest challenges we face, especially in assuring that we have reliable, resilient, and economical energy while meeting our state's climate goals in a just and equitable manner. The Institute for Northwest Energy Futures will build on students' knowledge by enhancing the energy curriculum that we have already put into place through the Department of Energy's Equity and Innovation Prize to ensure that low-income and minoritized populations have access to the benefits of clean energy, including the high-paying jobs this sector promises, having a voice in decision-making, and realizing improvements in health that clean energy will bring. We embrace the opportunity to inform the development of our energy future and firmly believe the Institute for Northwest Energy Futures could be that last corner piece of the puzzle. There's no better fit right here and right now. Governor, you've come to the right place. Now I would like to invite President and CEO of TriDec, Carl Dye, to say a few words. And thank you again, Governor.
Thank you, President Haynes. Chancellor Haynes, excuse me, President, Chancellor. Yeah. Governor, thanks for coming to the Tri-Cities today. On behalf of TriDec, represented our community now next year for over 60 years. We totally agree with you that Tri-Cities is the center of clean energy. 60 years ago, next year, President Kennedy actually came here to launch the N reactor, which was the first power producing, actually made clean energy from nuclear power and the plutonium mission at that time. And so next year is a really great year for TriDec and for our community. So it's only right that you're here to launch the Institute for Northwest Energy Future. So thanks for coming here today. From TriDec's perspective, from economic development, I just wanted to talk about a couple things that we see the role of Institute for Northwest Energy Futures playing. Number one, in economic development, since some federal legislation that's been very, very successful, including the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, and then, of course, the infrastructure law, we're seeing more activity in companies that want to move to Washington, want to move to the Tri-Cities, and something that we lack is green, affordable power for them. And so we see the Institute and the systems approach to looking at our clean energy approach, both on generation, new research and technologies, partnerships with Pacific Northwest National Lab, as an opportunity for us so that we don't miss out on these opportunities, so that we can fulfill House Bill 1170, we call it the Binky Bill, the manufacturing bill that brings Washington back to leading manufacturing throughout the nation. These are things that the Institute can look at and give us solutions and answers that we need as we move forward. I think also from our membership base, from our board of directors base, the Institute will give us the chance to look at that integration of policy, technology, and how do we get there? Because I think that's a question on businesses' mind, is how do we integrate clean technologies, carbon-free technologies in our businesses so that we can achieve some of these goals for our state, but how do we do it in an innovative and technologically leading way? So I think those are some other roles that we're excited about the Institute for that. We're a part of the Tri-Cities Legislative Council. That we also have all of our local chambers of commerce represented, as well as Visit Tri-Cities and TriDec on it. We look forward to supporting this bill through the legislative process this year and preparations. Look forward to our day in Olympia where we can support the Institute and our other priorities for the community. And on that legislative note, I am going to turn it over to our champion. I've been calling him Senator for like six months now, so it's a great chance to introduce Senator Binky of the mighty 8th District. Senator Binky.
Thank you all. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Governor Inslee, for inviting me out here. I am Matt Binky, mighty 8th, as you heard. Before I get started, some of my notes as well, as I'm a reader. I was raised as a reader to read about what's going on in the world, history, and things that have gone on. And a military background and the leadership positions that we've had over the years, reading comes back to the forefront of some of the plans and the ideas that we have of today have been actually replicated in the past. And if you look back, short history lesson here, before Silicon Valley actually got started, you look at some of the same elements that are happening right here in the Tri-Cities. And it's just that opportunity to bringing that all together, and we mentioned that today, the economics, the discussions of our leaders, the chambers, the workforce development, and get the sustainable leadership together to push this forward is what we're doing now, and that's the same thing that's happened in Silicon Valley. Do we want to be known as the center of the universe for energy? Yes. We want to say that loud and clear, and you're going to hear that today, and it continue throughout. As some of you may know, I recently entered the transfer portal and will be enrolling in the state senate this next year, seeing Senator win. I had to throw this piece in there, and I'm still waiting for that big name, image, and likeness. So if anybody has a deal out there, but apparently with a last name like mine, I don't know, Senator Wynn, like yours, we have the same kind of boat. Not too many people like that last name. It's not marketable as much. I don't know how you deal with it, but I'm working on that, so we'll see how that comes together. In all seriousness, I'd like to welcome you to this event. Here in the Tri-Cities, our slogan, and I got to give Chancellor Haynes the kudos, because she brought it up in one of the meetings we've been out, is clean up to clean energy. And you're going to hear that a lot about what we do. We are cleaning up our environment. This has happened from a kid who grew up in this area. My parents worked out here. I grew up in the opportunities to where we can see that clean up, get done, and move on. And what does the Tri-City look like? When I ran for this office, they were asking, what are we going to be in the next 10, 20, 30 years? And it's the clean energy hub, and you hear about today. And we have the opportunity, we're blessed with affordable clean energy. You mentioned from solar to hydro to wind, nuclear power. Our energy sources come from our community as well, like the governor mentioned. It's the brain power, but it's the people that we represent, the people that I'm humbled and honored to represent and continue throughout this. As we look forward ahead to the 2023 session, we want to continue to be the marketplace of ideas, to foster that emerging technology, to look at what is that next level, to get back into competition that you see around the globe, frankly, and what you're seeing right here in our backyard in the Tri-Cities. We want real solutions, and it's important for state lawmakers to put forward those real solutions and to do that to the needs of the constituents. And actually, I know this is odd, to listen to our constituents. Again, in the space of environmental and energy policy, Republicans and the legislators have put forward policies and proposals in the past that have come to fruition. The Outdoor Recreation and Climate Adaptation, or ORCA Act by Representative Mary Dye, was a good step forward in where we can work on forest health, the Puget Sound restoration, the drought resiliency, and flood mitigation. A few days ago, Senator Curtis King in my new house side of this, he's not helping me on my NIL contract, by the way, introduced the Power Washington plan, which we're proud of, to push sensible, fiscal responsible solutions for the energy future. And you're seeing that here in this environment. As we bring it together, preserving, improving, and expanding our clean hydro system, ensuring a transition to this clean energy technology is environmentally responsible. And really, to the heart of it all is the people that we're going to teach, train, in the workforce of the future to ensure that we do this. As we consider environmental policy, we must be mindful of life is not affordable as it used to be. We got to reach out to others to make sure that we understand what's really impacting our communities. Too many individuals find themselves living on our streets, and many families cannot find affordable housing. We got to make sure we understand this when we have clean energy and understand that there has been a learning loss and face the facts that we've seen in our education system. To understand where that learning loss is, that we can leverage this to be leaders again in our education systems. I think it's important for the legislator to acknowledge its actions and some inactions and just call it the way it is. Have exacerbated some of these problems, and some of it we have had solutions. But within our state, we have the power to help move this forward. Affordability, public safety, homelessness, housing, learning loss, and others are put in force and are real solutions, and I encapsulate that back to clean up to clean energy and what you hear about before. I'm proud to have worked with my colleagues. You mentioned the Binky Act, but it's the Building Economic Strength Through Manufacturing, or I like to term the Best Manufacturing Act, which is bold, is aggressive, of looking at doubling our manufacturing in the next 20 years, 10 years, to have women and minority-owned businesses lead from the front, and not only be at the table, lead from that front of the table. And people, we have not done that in the past. Legislation was passed with unanimous support and Governor Inslee's backing, and it acts as a template that we can bring a bipartisan support to this legislature and these energy policies that we have. Republicans and Democrats can come together and sound on policy to public that we can see. We must carry the sentiment and spirit of bipartisanship forward in this next millennium that we're seeing today. Also would like to acknowledge, I would be sad if I didn't, to the two housemates that have worked with me on this in the past couple of years. Senator Sharon Brown was a big advocate of this and taking and filling her shoes and just kind of carrying the guide on, as we used to call in the military, what she has done and continue that guide on forward. But I can't step back without thanking her for her support, as well as Representative Brad Clippard. The three of us were part of that Mighty A team that continues to move to where we're at today. I also want to end with, I want to welcome my two new seatmates who were supposed to be here. Apologies, Governor. Representative-elects April Connors and Stephanie Barnard, who deeply are ingrained in our commitment to doing this as well. And our team looks forward to bringing the interests and perspectives of the Mighty Eight to the legislature, in the Senate and the House, and welcome your input. Our listening sessions are wide open. We're available. And again, Governor Inslee, thanks for the invitation today. Thank you all for being out here. I really appreciate it. Humbled by this experience. With that, I introduce Malin.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Senator Binky said, my name is Malin Young. I'm an Associate Lab Director at the Pacific Northwest National Lab. I'm standing in for our director, Steve Ashby, who regrets that he can't be here today. First of all, I want to start off by thanking you, Governor, Chancellor Haynes, President Schultz, for inviting PNNL to participate here today. And we are grateful, Governor, for your enduring commitment to supporting clean energy innovation in research institutions and industries across the state, including here in the Tri-Cities. As we look to a decarbonized future, we really need to be thoughtful about how different technologies can best work together in an integrated energy system, and how to deploy these technologies in a way that is both equitable and resilient. A multidisciplinary approach like the one proposed for the Institute for Northwest Energy Futures at WSU is critical. I will say that at PNNL, we also take a multidisciplinary approach to energy research and innovation to support a transition to a decarbonized economy. And, you know, our work includes areas such as developing long-duration energy storage solutions, data-driven models to predict climate change and its impacts at the state and local level to better inform planning efforts, systems engineering expertise to inform national transmission planning for the grid of the future, new innovative green manufacturing methods, and we're also national leaders in applying data analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence in support of energy systems analysis, simulation, and advanced controls. So we at PNNL help solve national problems, and we're also committed to supporting our regional innovation ecosystem and clean energy transition here in our own backyard. We value our local, state, and regional partners with whom we develop and demonstrate novel technologies and approaches to energy innovation here in Washington, which can be scaled to create impact well beyond our region. One example is the Pacific Northwest Smart Grid Demo, where we worked with the Department of Commerce and utility partners on energy system simulation and validation. So I just want to say that, Chancellor Haynes, you noted that we have a long-standing strategic relationship between our two institutions. We have dozens of joint appointments and several joint research institutes. You mentioned the Advanced Grid Institute and the Bioproducts Institute. And at PNNL, we hire many WSU graduates. So thank you for that. With our partnership, we've seen what we can accomplish together when we combine the strengths of PNNL, our scientific and technical expertise, data analytics, and world-class scientific facilities with the reach of WSU, a diverse, top-tier research institution with campuses and extension offices around the entire state during a historic time of investment in clean energy innovation and infrastructure. So we're very excited about WSU's new Institute for Energy Futures, and we literally look forward to working with you, the state of Washington and regional stakeholders, to bring our expertise to advance Washington's clean energy future. So thank you again for inviting us to join you today, and I am now pleased to turn it back over to Governor Inslee.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Before we stand for a question, just a personal note, I want to tell you particularly why I'm so excited here. Trudy and I have been very fortunate. We've got 2 new grandsons who've shown up this fall, and they're pretty wonderful young men. And it is my desire that we will do everything we can to give them a Washington State that is as beautiful and healthy as I grew up in, where there's snow in the mountains and salmon in the rivers and clean air to breathe, where we don't choke on forest fires. This institute is as important in their future as anything else that's going on in the world today. So I want to thank the Tri-City community, the WSU community, from lifting our sights to really do the research that is necessary to give my 2 brand new grandkids a shot. And I am very personally appreciative of the work that's going on here. I'm going to do everything I can to advance it. This is a high priority for me. I think you can tell. And I want to thank our new senator. He just agreed to vote for my budget, which I really appreciate that. And he'll do that proudly, I'm sure. And we're going to do some good things this session. With that, happy to stand for questions myself or any of the other speakers. Anybody, questions from the media, if any?
I have a question for Chancellor Haynes. So it was not too long ago we were hearing about Bob Ferguson's donation would be leveraged to raise $2 million for this center. And today we're talking about $10 million, so I feel like I kind of missed a chapter there. I don't know if you can fill in.
So the $2 million was going to be raised to hire the director of that institute. It was going to finish out the endowment for that position. As the governor said earlier, there are many more positions that we need in the institute to really do that interdisciplinary approach. So to fully build out the center, it will take much more than the $2 million that we had recently envisioned, or that we had initially envisioned, just to hire and endow the director position.
And how long will it take? I think the governor, and maybe it was, I don't remember who said it now, someone said 8 to 10 professors. What would be the timeline to build up to that?
To build out to 8 to 10 professors, we would, once we are funded, we would immediately start hiring, and probably that would happen within 1 to 2 years.
If I may.
Yes.
I have another question if no one else does.
Go, let me just note too, I'm optimistic of how fast this is going to grow for 2 reasons. One, we have now shown with the creation of the institute that this research function of the state of Washington is an integral thing in our higher education system. It is not peripheral. It is not dependent on the whims of any particular president or even private funder. It is an integral thing in the higher education function of the state of Washington. And I'm convinced people are going to beat down this door to come here to Washington State University. The appetite in the academic community to really build a clean energy future is unparalleled, because people understand how urgent it is. And people understand, literally, the people of the world are going to look to this place to solve this worldwide problem. This is the central challenge of humanity. There has never been a challenge in human history like this, and there's never been an opportunity for new technologies as well. So I'm very optimistic this thing is going to grow very rapidly. Do you have another question?
Yes, you talked about that in the legislature you'd be looking at new ways to engage the community in citing clean energy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, we have a siting mechanism for making decisions where we put transmission lines, where we put manufacturing facilities, where we make storage facilities. We have a siting system that was built for the last century. We need one that's built for this century, where we make decisions making, frankly, faster, with earlier appropriate community input in these decisions in a way that's integrated across multiple jurisdictions. All of those things need improvement in our siting system. So we're going to introduce legislation to address all 3 of those things. We think we'll have faster decision making with earlier community input that integrates multiple jurisdictions. We have to have that. We do not have decades to make these decisions. And I look forward to working with the legislature on that. I had a question up there.
Yeah, thank you, Governor. Thank you, everybody. This is really exciting for our community, particularly cleaning up to clean energy. Can you tell us what you envision this institute will have a role in the Washington State Clean Energy, Clean Hydrogen Hub?
Well, yeah, the question was about what role will this play in our clean energy hub issue with hydrogen. So we are going to make a request for the federal government that we become one of the green hydrogen hubs to develop a soup to nuts production to distribution network to create a hydrogen economy here in the state of Washington and beyond. And we think we're perfectly positioned to do that because we do have adequate, abundant electricity and hydropower. We're blessed in that regard. We do have the technological prowess. We've demonstrated that. We have access to the maritime industry because of our coastline. We're a port where hydrogen, green hydrogen, can be very, very effective in the maritime environment. So we have all the makings to be a place to build a green hydrogen economy here. We're optimistic about that. This can be pivotal in finding out whatever policies we need to implement that, and B, actual technologies to do that. And I think it's a perfectly suited for this institute. That's why I want to get it up and running as quickly as humanly possible. Now, this is not the only game in town, though. When anybody asks me about green hydrogen or solar or batteries or wind or smaller nuclear reactors, the point I want to make is there's no one technology that we're going to bind ourselves to as the exclusive game in town. We have to look at all of these potential technical solutions, including hydrogen, and that's one of the reasons I like this institute. It's not just the battery storage technology, it's not just the green hydrogen. It's going to look at all of these potential platforms, and I think that's one of its strengths. Any other easy questions?
Hi, Governor.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Sam, reporter with Keeper Action News. Thanks
Hi.
for being here today and taking our questions. For our area, very big in agriculture, rich in farmland, what is the, focus that's being placed on adapting these industrial and agricultural processes to meet these clean energy needs?
Well, first off, the ag industry can be a clean energy industry fundamentally. The place where that looks immediately we look at is in biofuel possibilities. We know biofuels has a significant role to play by building the ag base to serve biofuels. We know that because of the work that's going on here at WSU. Alaska Airlines, Boeing, WSU are all well on its way to developing clean biofuel fuels for our aerospace industry. Look, the aerospace is one of the tougher nuts to crack on this, right? It's 1% to 2% of our pollution, and it's kind of hard. You can't use an extension cord on an airplane. And so we believe biofuels is going to be one of the things this institute can focus on and look to integrate systems. That's the other thing that I think this institute can really help on, is integrating multiple systems to make this work. From the farm to the transportation system to the storage to the regulatory system to allow this to work in aerospace. All of those things I think the institute can really help on. But it's not just that. It's green fertilizer, right? So we have enormous needs for fertilizer. There are new technologies coming on that have greener systems of nitrogen and ammonia. And so developing new green ways to produce fertilizer is very exciting. I met with a company in Norway a couple months ago about this new technology. So it's not just production, it's usage as well to help in our ag industry. Sky's the limit. Look, think about it. For those who think, well, this is kind of small, it's $10 million, it's maybe 10 professors, it's kind of small. But think how the wine industry started here 50 years ago. It was pretty small too. Now it's the best wine in the world. It's a massive industry, and I think that's how we should think of WSU Institute for Northwest Energy Futures. We're going to do for clean energy what we've done for wine in the last several decades. That's an exciting prospect, and I believe it's a real one.
I had another quick question.
Yeah.
With the new carbon fee that's supposed to set in at the beginning of the year,
yeah.
Obviously we aren't really going to know the impact until it kicks in, but is there any anticipation that it's going to be affecting consumers?
If so, extremely modest, but it's going to have a positive impact for consumers, because there's one thing I know about consumers. They like to breathe, all of them, and they don't like to breathe forest fire smoke. They like their kids to be able to go outside. They'd like to have salmon in Puget Sound and in the rivers so the water's not so hot that they can't survive. They like to have snow to ski on into winters. That's what consumers like. And this is going to be a strong measure that, again, is the most just, equitable system in the United States to give them that, which they want, as well as new technologies, as well as new transportation systems. And I'm very excited about its implementation. Yeah.
Thank you all for being here, especially you gentlemen coming down here. I'm Zygmunt Stroker with KNUU, Nonstop Local here in Tri-Cities. And I am a Cougar alumni, so I got to start with Go Cougs. But my first question for you is that INEF being instituted here, you said that it will help with the progress of already passed legislation for things like zero-emission vehicles.
Right.
Would you be able to get into a little bit more specifics about how that might help the eastern half of the state where infrastructure for electric vehicles might be a little more scarce than the western side of the state?
Well, one of the things that I hope that the Institute will look at is charging infrastructure. Can we come up with more reliable charging infrastructure? Can we find ways that have less cost in the distribution? Those are all things that are going to be within the scope of this Institute, as well as emerging battery technology. Look, batteries are everything when it comes to electrifying our transportation system. And we are becoming a center of battery excellence in the world today. These two new companies up in Moses Lake are the two most recent developments. They're actually starting manufacturing plants. I don't think it's out of the question that this institute can help further any particular investment or technologies they want to perfect as well. So this is the perfect place, the perfect moment, and I couldn't be more happy. So go Cougs.
Go Cougs. Awesome. Second question I had for you is that you put an emphasis on needing future generation workers to occupy these jobs coming up from clean energy. Is there sort of a timeline, or how many jobs possible to be expected when this institute does get implemented?
Well, there's at least one. His name is Max Yenny. He's a student in electrical engineering at Washington State University right now. He's a freshman, and I want that young man to have a job in the state of Washington developing these new technologies. And two things are going to happen. One, we're going to build this institute, so hopefully he can maybe be part of that. And two, the president's going to make sure he does his homework. And if both those things happen, good things are going to happen. No, listen, the skill set is very important in this industry. We have to have the skill sets if we're going to have industry. Industry is not just a building or a transmission line, obviously. It's the skill sets. And we're developing those skill sets big time, both at Washington State University, but I want to add, too, in non-college educated fields as well. One of the things we're very proud of is we have a thing called the Career Connect Washington program, which has developed the skill set that may not involve a 4 or even 2-year degree, particularly in the electrical industry. Look, to have enough electricians to create this whole new clean energy transmission system is absolutely imperative. So those type of things we're building as well in apprenticeships, and we're proud of that. We need plumbers to be able to get ready to build pipelines for green hydrogen. That's part of our skill set development as well. Yes?
I'm Riley Fitzgerald with KNUU. So we're talking about building this institution here on the WSU campus, and I will say go Cougs as well. I just recently graduated from there.
Right.
And so we're talking about building this on this campus right here. What will we see in terms of, will there be new buildings going up, new laboratories? Will the campus be expanding at all?
Jeffrey, you want to talk about that?
We're already blessed to have one of the finest laboratories in energy on our campus, the Bioproduct Sciences Engineering Laboratory that I spoke of. We also have a great opportunity right now to take advantage of some of the buildings that we have around us that have laboratories in them but are standing vacant. And we're hoping that we can take advantage and purchase one of those buildings to help expand the capability. And that way, we're also recycling, if you will, what is already here into something that's much more useful.
Thank you. How many professors do you have already at WSU Tri-Cities?
We have just under 100 full-time faculty here at WSU Tri-Cities, and many more adjuncts. And thank you, PNNL, for that.
There's something happening here that you get a symbiosis of multiple disciplinary actions happening here right now in Tri-Cities. You know, we've got LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory, right? So Tri-Cities proved Einstein was right in the development of gravity waves. You've got scientists out there. You've got the VIT plant developing whole new materials handling thing. When you get a critical mass of people in a multiple disciplinary field, great things can happen. And that's why I think one of the reasons this is perfect. By the way, I should point out that one of the things I did when I was a member of Congress representing this area was to get the appropriation, one of the appropriations for LIGO. And I am sharing credit for the discovery of gravity waves with Albert Einstein as well. I try to keep that quiet a little bit, but it's fun to see. Okay, well, thanks very much. Let's go build an institute, a new clean energy future for the state of Washington. Go Cougs. Good luck.